Hey there, welcome to That Dang Dad, the only place on YouTube where you can hear what a white guy thinks about something. I am Phil, thank you for joining me. Last week we got into some kind of heavy life or death stuff, so I thought I'd kind of lighten the mood a little bit this time around. So my wife and I are in this inescapable vortex of feeding, changing diapers, and one of the things that we are relying on to make that process a little bit more efficient is pumping breast milk. My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. So, we have to sit for long stretches of time to do that. So we've been catching up on our Amazon and our Netflix queue and stuff like that. And lately we've been catching up with a recent favorite, one that makes us laugh and cry and French tuck our shirts. That's right. I want to talk a little bit about Queer Eye.
Yes, Queen!
So I've been thinking a lot about the modern Queer Eye formula and how it functions. And I know the magic of selective editing can sort of impose a narrative where maybe there wasn't one. But for a moment, let's take Queer Eye at its word and sort of engage with what it's presenting. So the modern iteration kind of goes something like this. Somewhere out in Belt Buckle, USA, there's a person who's generally pretty good, but they're stuck in some kind of a rut. They're full of self-doubt or ennui. They're letting their hair grow out all nasty and all scraggly. So the Fab Five kind of swoop in like the Queer Avengers and, fix it for them. So what's really interesting is this time around, the Queer Eye formula is much less about lifestyle pornography than the previous kind of iteration of it. And it's actually much more about self-love and self-care and sort of giving yourself permission to, want things and take care of yourself. In the episodes, they always end with a freshly shorn protagonist tearfully hugging the Fab Five and saying everything's going to be different for me now. This is life-changing. And yeah, I cry at the end of every episode now because it's cool to cry because you're proud of a stranger's achievements. You should try it sometime. So anyway, my first question about this is, why does this work? Why are the Fab Five successful at turning things around for these people? Because think of it this way. We all know that money does not buy happiness. And yet, every episode, the Fab Five spend 10 grand on a person, buying them all this stuff, fixing their house. And it's interesting because they don't take a sad person and then make them happy enough to, do the things a happy person would do, cut their hair, take care of their stuff. What they do is they take a sad person, then they give them lots of things, the haircuts, the nice clothes, the remodels. And from a cynical perspective, this is almost like a kind of cargo cult mentality about happiness. Give them the stuff and the happiness will follow. Except Queer Eye isn't a cynical show, and I don't think that the consumption is the engine that is driving the show. I don't think that the nice clothes and the shaved beards are doing the heavy lifting. I think the fellas are. And I think you see it at the beginning of almost every episode. The Fab Five swoop in, and from the minute they get there, they are unconditionally and unreservedly loving on these protagonists. For the most part, they are showing up and giving genuine, warm compliments and love and care to these people right off the bat before any changes have been made. And they're very clear about this even during the makeover parts where they say, we don't want to change you. We want to highlight what's already good about you. And after 5 days of that, these protagonists are just born again, and they're full of drive and life and purpose. And so I think that the stuff is actually just there to remind them of how they're feeling and to remind them that they deserve good things in life after the Fab Five leave. And that brings me to part 2 and my real question, which is, why are the Queer Eye guys so good at this? Because think about it, every single protagonist has people in their lives that love them and like nominated them for the show. Presumably these people have been trying to help them and it's not been working. So why is bringing in 5 kind of flamboyant gay guys doing the trick for these people? So since I have a new channel, I only have like a max of 10 minutes to talk about things. So I'm skipping over a lot of context and I want to zero in on a theory that I have. I think their otherness is the key. That's right, baby. We're going back to otherness. So I've been stewing on this for a long time, and I think it kind of works like this. People who are stuck in a rut, people who are full of self-loathing and self-neglect. I think these people see their friends and family all around them, and they think, well, they have to care about me. They're part of my tribe. They're part of my family. They have to say this. They pity me. And suddenly you get 5 guys ziplining in who are not just strangers. They are super queer strangers that dress differently and they talk differently and they represent this entirely alien world to the small town that a lot of the show takes place in. And I think that instead of this encounter with the other causing an inward retreat, I think the Queer Eye guys have found a genius hack, because these people that have loathed and neglected themselves for years suddenly have to contend with the fact that this mysterious alien other loves them. You know, we talked last week about Emmanuel Levinas' theory that an encounter with the other presents us with a choice to let them live or allow them to die. Well, I think Queer Eye gives a really brilliant inversion of this, because in the show, the other has encountered us, and it wants us to live abundantly. It reminds me of a concept out of Stacy Clifford Simplican's The Capacity Contract, which I learned about from Philosophy Tube. And if you haven't checked out Philosophy Tube, you definitely should. It's an awesome channel. But in short, she presents 2 kinds of communities. Communities of domination, in which inclusion comes from what you can do for them, what you can provide, what you can produce. And then communities of vulnerability, where inclusion comes because you all need the same things, in which, quote, men's vulnerability, both physical and cognitive, prompts men to form a solidarity capacity contract, ensuring that all men can appeal to justice. For me, this is the genius of Queer Eye, because I think almost every protagonist, when you really boil them down, I think they're all struggling with their place in communities of domination. Either they feel like they don't have anything to offer, and so they feel like a burden, or they feel like they're, for some reason, required to maximize their output and don't feel like they have a license to ask for sort of self-care and ask for something back from the community. I think from the minute the Fab Five show up, they are inviting these protagonists to sort of shed this mental model of domination. I think the Fab Five locate the protagonists' value in their vulnerability as humans, not in their productive capacity. You know, they say, we don't love you for what you can do. We love you because you deserve to be loved. Holy shit. So what do you think of my theory? Do you think I'm on the right track? Drop me a comment below and let me know what you think. And if this is the kind of snackable content that you crave, you go ahead and like this video, perchance a subscription. And I'm not sure what the bell does, but hit that too. I'm sure it's good. Anyway, that's what I got this time around. I really appreciate you joining me and watching the video. And sleep tight. I'll catch you next time.